Let's move on to someone that's been gaining a lot of attention over the last couple of years for most of the time for the wrong reasons, and hopefully soon for the right. Conor Benn. Let's have a listen to what Conor Benn had to say, because he was on talkSPORT earlier last week.
We're in talks with Barrios for the WBC World title, which is, if there's anything that's going to make me pick over the Eubank fight, it would be the WBC World title.
Do you think he looked good the other night against Ramos? It was a great fight. But Ramos came back into it, didn't he?
Yeah, I don't think he looked great. I don't think Barrios looked great. He's a great fighter, tough Mexican, but I don't think he looked great. I think he's built for me. You know, he will come out firing. I feel rejuvenated, full of life. You remember the fights in Florida, the fight in Vegas. I've said to Tony, I don't even know if I want to fight anymore. That was me at that stage. I'm not sure if I wanted to fight. I didn't want to fight, to be honest with you, but discipline got me through. You know, it wasn't about motivation. I was the most unmotivated geezer going. It wasn't about motivation, it was just about discipline. And I've shown more discipline and work ethic and ambition in the past 2 years than I have done my whole career. It's staying ready, staying in the gym, irrelevant of what people are saying, irrelevant of this getting pulled, my own people playing in my heart black. I stayed in the gym so that you are cleared of any wrongdoing moment, which I've just had. I'm ready to go. So I feel like I'm full of life, ready to take what's mine. I feel like I've missed out on a lot over the past 2 years.
A lot of people are going to be screaming for the Eubank fight, though. Is that burning inside you?
Yeah, because I want to smash his head in. Personally, that's the reality. And I know a lot of people aren't going to like that, but that's the reality. You don't rub salt in my wounds. You know, never kick a man when he's down. Or if you do kick me when I'm down, you best make sure the job gets done. If not, we get back up and you're in trouble. And that's how I feel.
British Boxing Board of Control have until Wednesday to decide whether they're going to appeal or not. Let's not you and I pick the bones out of whether we believe or Duke believes that Conor has been cleared or not. Let's assume that he's going to be free to fight, irrespective of whether we agree that's right or wrong. Right? Where do you think he should be going? Do you think he should be going against Barrios, or do you think he should be going, if the opportunity is available to him, to fight for a world title, or do you think he should be fighting Eubank Jr? You know that I had a long conversation with his dad last week on something else I do, who was firmly in the camp that his son should fight Eubank Jr.
Yeah. Well, I'm firmly in the camp that his son, who I think is WBC number 2 right now, should fight Mario Barrios. Because I think that when you're looking for an opportunity to fight for a world title and that opportunity comes up, Mario Barrios is very, very beatable. We saw him draw against Ramos. We was out there actually in Texas on the undercard of Jake Paul, Mike Tyson, and I saw vulnerabilities there, and I go, if this kid's going to win a world title, Barrios is the guy that he would beat to win it. So why wouldn't you go and pick up the WBC? The Eubank Jr. fight is always going to be there. That's timeless, that fight, because that fight can happen. Eubank Jr. has got his own path to go for. He can box for a world title as well. If they both lose for the world titles, they can still box and still make a hell of a lot of money. I think that, go for the WBC title if that opportunity arises.
We saw last week, Duke, Ben Shalom, who now represents Chris Eubank, who's apparently not in the scumbag category of promoters, right? Making a suggestion or stating to someone else that they were going to be putting an offer in for the Eubank Benn fight. Nigel said to me emphatically that he felt that his son should fight Chris Eubank Jr. I've never liked it for a variety of reasons. Where are you on it?
That's the most obvious fight to make, isn't it? Because that's the money. It's the money fight, right? But obviously, questions have to be asked. This kid just had 2 years away from boxing. You know, to walk back into such a major fight after 2 years out.
He's had 2 fights, though, hasn't he?
Yeah, but but he's not beating anybody, right?
No.
Just beating also rounds. You know, if you're gonna take another step up and fight somebody like a Eubank or a Barrios, certainly then the level of opposition that you're facing has to be greater.
You want a good warm-up.
You want a good warm-up. You need the rounds. You really need I'm not saying he shouldn't. Listen, if the opportunity comes and he's got to take it, of course he does. You know, and why not?
But if there's a decision to box Barrios or Eubank next,
Barrios.
That's where I'm at.
Barrios.
That's where I'm at. I think just go for that. You know, that's a huge opportunity.
Well, I'm going to feign interest in this, but where does it leave Chris Eubank Jr.? Because so much noise has been made about this fight. I mean, obviously, Conor's gone in the ring after the Eubank latest performance in Saudi, where Chris is aligning himself with Turki Al-Sheikh and trying to be an island in his own right and create opportunities for himself. And fair play, because he's very smart and very bright at promoting himself. But everything has been sort of structured around this Benn fight. And the money that's going to go with it is probably going to be 4 or 5 times what Conor's going to get if he fights Barrios and wins a world title. I said to Nigel exactly that. You know, I had this debate about why doesn't he just stay at 147, win a world title at 147. I think he can win a world title at 147. Nigel's argument is, I want him in and out of this sport.
Yeah.
I want him to make some money and I want him to be out. Nigel was in for 9 years.
Listen, is it about the belts and about the legacies, or is it about the money? If it's about the money, go for the Eubank fight. But I'm talking as an ex-fighter. You're talking as a fighter. You go, listen, mate, if I get an opportunity to fight for the world title, and I know that fight's still there, I'm fighting for the world title. That's the route that you want to take.
Yeah.
You know, otherwise you're in it for the wrong reasons. You're in it just to nick a few quid and get out.
But you're always saying to me, every time I make that argument in a different circumstance, you turn around and say, you know, it's called prize fighting for a reason, mate.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, Simon, the title is on the line. So what I'm saying is that the opportunity is there. That fight's, the money's always going to be there with Eubank. Absolutely, of course. That fight with Eubank will always be there. Like Eubank goes and box. He's world ranked in all the middleweight governing bodies. I think he's as high as number 5 with the WBC, WBO. He's in WBA. He's number 2, I believe, somewhere around there. What I'm saying is he's gonna. If his promoter, Ben Shalom, can get him the opportunity, which I'm sure they can, because I've been in talks before, Janabek or someone like that, you go, get him. If he goes and loses for the world title and Conor Benn loses for the world title, that fight's still big and it'll still be made anyway.
Here's another thing.
So you got to follow that.
Here's another thing that Nigel said, and I want to see what you think of it, Duke, about his son. You know, and we had this debate about what was being said about Conor, and, you know, it was quite fierce, a slightly hostile debate at times because Nigel was not happy with me and even less happy with you. Yeah. But he
hold on. Can I ask you one?
I defended you, as you know.
Yeah, no, but why would he be less happy with me?
I don't know.
When all I'm doing is calling out like everyone. Everyone understands.
Maybe because he thinks you
answer the foul test, mate. We've still not got there.
Maybe there's a code of conduct between you fighters that he thinks that you're not observing. Maybe it's like in football where the dressing room secrets never come out. No. And maybe, I don't know, I didn't, you know, I said to him emphatically, whatever you think you've heard Spencer say, he's never been derogatory about your son. All he's asked for is Conor to prove he's not taking these drugs.
Like everyone else.
But what Nigel also said, and this is the more interesting part of it, was he thinks Conor Benn, his own son, is a better fighter than he was. And he thinks he'll go on to achieve bigger things than he did, which I think is...
That's his son, that's his flesh and blood.
But he was talking about the talent levels. He was basically saying, what I could do is go in and have a tear-up, you know, and put myself in the way of fights in a certain respect. My son's got far more ability, it's far more compelling.
That's dad talking, isn't it?
Yeah.
Is it?
Listen, you go back and watch Nigel box, back in the day, when you look at him back in the early 90s, when he was out there boxing Doug DeWitt and all those guys, and you look at Iran Barkley and all that, you go, there was a little bit more than just having a tear-up.
Yeah.
You know, you've got to set the traps, you've got to be able to know when when to pounce and do whatever. At that level, he beats some great fighters, man. And you go, come on, Nigel. Like Nigel is a modern day great.
I agree.
And so I go, that
he is talking like him. He's talking as a dad, though, isn't he?
Yeah.
If your son's
I'm asking you because you guys know.
Yeah. If your son's fighting, you know, you're going to back him to the hilt.
His son's got a long way to go before he gets to his dad's legacy.
Do you see any... OK, well, let me
no similarities whatsoever.
But do you see anything in his analysis that his son has the ability to go on? I mean, ultimately, Nigel told me something I didn't know the other day, which a lot of things I don't know, but he told me that his face is etched on the WBC belt alongside Joe Calzaghe's, isn't it?
Yeah.
Joe Calzaghe because he was undefeated, and Nigel Benn because he was voted for by the public as being the most popular super middleweight. So from that point of view, he has huge credibility alongside the fact I saw him fight myself in the flesh. I saw him fight McLennan, and I know what that fight did to him. But do you not see anything in what he's saying that Conor can go to that level, be a world title?
He can be a world champion. He's going to get. You know what? At some point, he's going to get a world title opportunity. Whether he takes it or not, that's the $1 million question. But at some point, it's going to present itself. But Junior will never be as good as Senior. It doesn't matter what anybody says. He's just not.
You need to see, like, he's got to have had some form of test. We've not really even seen him in any
major fights where he's had to come back.
Like Nigel Benn, when you're comparing legacies and you see what Nigel done and the fights that he was involved in to get to even a world title fight, you go like, come on, like that's a big call.
Different era. I mean, he fought 22 fights in 24 months.
But what I'm saying is they had some big names on the record as well.
When Nigel Benn got knocked out of the ring by General McClelland, and he was knocked out of the ring, if that had been me, I'd have stayed out. But Nigel Benn clawed his way. No, but he did.
I saw him tell you about the 20-second thing, actually.
He went out. He was knocked out of the ring, and then he went, I'm not staying out. And he pulled himself back in like some kind of a superhero. It was an unbelievable fight.
Where were you on Eubank Jr.? I mean, I've had a few broadsides at him insofar as I'm entitled to. I'm not, because I've never stepped in the ring, but I talk about what he says, which is I want to be a world champion. I'm a world level fighter. And I say, well, then when you've stepped up to Billy Joe Saunders and George Groves, you got beaten in both instances, so you weren't at world level. You might have been there to participate but not to win. And then you don't seem to fight anybody. You just tell us about how much money you've got. Where are you on Eubank Jr.?
That's exactly what he does, though, isn't it? He just, you know, he shows you his financial wealth without having fought anybody. I couldn't name you.
Do you think he's a world-class fighter?
He's world class, but he's not a world champion.
Do you think he's a world beater? Do you think he could become
world champion? He might have missed the boat, Spence.
Yeah.
He might have missed the boat, because all we ever get and all we've ever had from Eubank Jr. is he's going to be the next big thing, the next gen. He's going to do this and the ABCD, but we've never seen him fight anybody.
That's a big
that's
shout,
a live opponent.
Well, I suppose if you can use the term next gen when you've got a 58-year-old coming back in the ring, can't you? You can use the term next gen.
The problem with Chris Eubank Jr. right now is that he's 35 years of age now? And like you say, like, you know, when you're putting those miles on the clock and time is ticking all the time, yeah, he lives a good life, he doesn't drink, etc., whatnot, but you just look at his last performance, you're only as good as your last performance, you look there and you see, like, the cracks starting to appear, you know, like that. You know, he was there, he was getting hit maybe more than you see in the past or whatever, or was it just the fact that he didn't respect the guy? Remains to be seen, but look, I'd like to see Chris now step up and box for a world title. I think that's important for him right now, because...
Well, that gives him legacy, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
And that validates him as a fighter, you know, because right now there is no belt. He hasn't won anything.
I mean, if you have
major.
his father will say he's got an IBO belt, and they'll all argue back against the WBO belt and say that once upon a time, the British Boxing Board of Control wouldn't even recognise the WBO belt. When Nigel went over there and won it against Doug DeWitt, they didn't recognise it. That's why he tore up his licence. So it's all times and spaces. So there's a part of people suggesting that he's won the IBO belt. I don't recognise that as a world title belt.
Who does?
You know. Anyway, listen, let's move away from Conor and whatever may... I think he'll fight Eubank next.
Yeah, you think that's the fight?
I think that's a done deal.
Yeah.
I think that's what will happen.